Hi and welcome to Simply Ballers 2024-2025 season previews. It's that time of the year where for the next 30 days I'll be releasing a season preview for each team. In each preview there will be a quick season and off-season recap. Then following that we'll be looking at what's in store for each team. We'll be looking at some of the key questions that they have, some of the positives, some of the negatives. It will be digging deeper in some of those areas. And at the end there are some final thoughts with prediction of the standings, their floor, their ceiling, some of the playoff chances and some other fun predictions. So today we're going through the Philadelphia 76ers, and as it usually is with them, their season came to a quick end because of health issues. Whether it's the best player missing the playoff entirely, whether it's them not being 100%, whether it's ruining their chances for a top seed, it again came down to just health issues. And their season already started on a bad note with James Harden calling out Daryl Morey, saying he's a liar and he'll never be a part of an organization with him, and that complicated things. That already put the season on hold before it even started, with trying to figure out what trade you could have James Harden. That changed things drastically because you already knew heading into the season you're not going to be complete. You already knew that you had to take into consideration that you're going to lose your second best player. And they did end up getting Nicholas Batum, Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, KJ Martin and picks, and all have at least played 25 games for the 76ers, but it was only Batum who was either on the team or got minutes in the playoffs. But this team still had a good season, especially when Joel Embiid was playing. And because when he was playing in his first 25 games, he averaged 35 points, 12 rebounds and 6 assists and 3 stocks per game on 65% true shooting, and the Sixers were 20-5 in those games. Then they went 11-3 in the games after he came back. So overall they were almost plus 10 net rating with Joel Embiid on. But they were minus 0.5 with 115 offense without him. They went 16-27 when he was injured, with a almost minus 4 net with a 113 offense. So they were a 79% win team with him and a 37% win team without him. So that was their season. It was literally being really good with the best player playing. He looked solid with Maxey against his Knicks, and except he wasn't 100%, and that is kind of what cost them the season. They did try to make moves throughout the season when it comes to getting Buddy Hield, Cameron Payne, Kyle Lowry, but they still just couldn't get out of that first round, and it made this season a bit disappointing, considering how it started, considering how Joel Embiid was playing, considering how Maxey was looking better, especially in the series. But that's just how it is with the Sixers. It's disappointment, it's health issues, and that's just how it is. When it comes to the off-season, they did take a swing, and it was a big one. It started off a lot before this season, where they were making sure that they were going to have cap space for this off-season, and it worked out for them. They took a swing, and it went their way, as good as they could get. They got top-end talent with their max money. They added pieces around the edges. They retained their players. They gave the extension to Tyrese Maxey. They did everything good in the off-season. Getting Paul George is the highest swing move they could have made. He was the best player available, whether it was by trade or free agency. He's an all-NBA caliber player. He gives them something that they never had before. And if you're comparing them to the off-season last year, you're essentially just giving up James Harden for Paul George at this point, with how it all worked out. And that is an upgrade. He raises both their floor and the ceiling. This has the potential to be one of the best off-season moves in a while for any team. And with the lesser moves, they did end up signing Caleb Martin, Eric Gordon, Andre Drummond, and Reggie Jackson, as well as drafting Jared McCain. So this was a really good off-season. Forgot to mention that they also extended Joel Embiid. So they locked up all the key players, improved around the edges, and surrounded both players with top-end talent in Paul George. So what's in store for the Sixers this year? It's first, they're coming in with no distraction. There is no what's going to happen with James Harden anymore. There is no trade scenarios that you have to consider. So right now, it's how will George fit in with everyone? How is he going to look with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey? How is he going to look taking more responsibilities when he's not on the court without them? It's how Joel Embiid going to look. He had a career year this was probably his best chance at a legit MVP right away. In his first 25 games, he was the clear MVP, and I don't think anyone was close to it. Can he at least be healthy this year? Can he be healthy from start to finish and finally have a healthy playoff run? Will Maxey continue to take those leaps the way he has already? Can we see a potential All-NBA appearance from him? Is this the best team in the Joel Embiid era? I'm not sure right now. It's on par with the 2019 season. But right now it's looking like it could be right there next to them or even better. How so many of those role players and vets look? Do they have enough size in the front court? And finally, is this a legit contender? Did they made the best possible moves to surround Joel Embiid with the right players to make them a legit contender that can compete with anyone else in the league? So the biggest question will be about Paul George and how he fits in with all of this. I went through the signing and how that will fit in more detail at my Substack at simplyballing.com. But just looking at some of the key points, it's how will he look as a player, period. Because he's 34 years old and he's coming off a not so good playoff series. How much of a potential decline can we expect from him? Because at some point it is going to happen. His rim pressure already has declined to 16% of his shots. That's the lowest since 2017, though he still converts over 67% of them. His free throw as well, that's dropped. So there has been many areas, many ways that he hasn't looked, in the same way he has been since 2019. On the other hand, he's still been trending upwards in so many other areas. It's just taken a balance of decline in some of the on-ball shot creation, but making it up for it with elsewhere. But going through everything that has been going well for George, it has me wondering how many of those potential drop-offs that will even matter on this team. Because everything that this team will need, he still does it exceptionally well. There are some of the things that he had career highs in the last few or so years. He had his most impactful offensive season per estimated plus minus since he was a top 5 MVP in 2019. This was his second highest impact in his career. And the biggest reason for that is because of his shooting. He's one of the best shooters on the planet, especially when you consider the size that he does it with. He's a career 38% shooter on almost 10 threes per 100 possession. In these 5 years, he's shooting 40% on 11 threes per 100 possession. His catch and shoot numbers are also insane, where since 2017, he had one season below 40%, and that was also at 38. His frequency is also as elite, with 27% of his shots being off the catch, and he has never, since 2017, dipped below 20%. Here, some of his ranks in percentiles when it comes to spot-ups are just insane. Starting from this year, going backwards, 93rd percentile, 83rd, 93rd, 96th, 81st, 95th, 92nd, 84th and 84th. Then there's also him off-screen, 68th, 40th, 72nd, 44th, 88th, 71st, 67th. So he's truly an elite shooter in many ways possible as well. He only had 4 seasons below 90th percentile in the last 8 years. So that is what they're going to get. That's one of the biggest ways he will help this team right now. That does make the fit so much easier alongside Maxey and Embiid, because of all the players who played at least 100 minutes with Embiid, only Maxey attempted over 10 threes per 100 possession, and he shot 40%. So they're already getting a guy that will just fit right to it. They never had two guys at that volume, at that accuracy, that can just spread and space the floor. And there's so much flexibility and variety that George also provides. You can have him be a spacer in the corners, where he's been a 43% shooter for his career, and over the last 5 years he's shooting 52%. So there is no way you can leave him open. And with Joel, you can have him in a strong corner, so that makes the pass even easier. You can have him in the weak side corners, so if the defense does send help at Joel, that can easily be a kick. Especially, and with Maxey's drive as well, if you just have George in those corners, there is no way Maxey will be seeing any kind of help on those drives. You can have him involved as a screener for either Maxey and Embiid. That's going to be fun. You can have him as one pass away, or in any of the actions where it's Joel in the post, Maxey in the pick and roll. This team was already elite with both Embiid and Maxey on, with 124 offensive rating, and a lot of the minutes included Tobias Harris, DeAnthony Melton, and Nicholas Batum. You're replacing one of those players with a significantly better off-ball player. So that trio is going to look so much better. So there is no doubt with how he's going to fit alongside them. There is no doubt with whether they can make it work. For what's more intriguing to me is what are the rest of the pluses from George's game, because he's not just a off-ball shooter. He's not just a spacer. He's not going to be used solely how Batum is used or how Harris was used. That's the bonus of having him over those kind of players. He's capable of playing the off-ball role, but he equally as good as a ball handler. He's equally as good as creating for himself and creating for others. The Clippers with George on and no Harden were +8 with 120 offensive rating. George in those minutes scored 28 points per 75 possession on 65% true shooting, with a 28% usage as well. When you take Leonard off that as well, where he was just the only guy creating for himself and for others, he increases points to 31 points per 75 possession on the same efficiency with 32% usage. A lot of that comes with his pick and roll. Over the last 5 years, he had the best point efficiency at 1.09 with almost 60% effective field goal. That's up from 0.97 last year, 0.83 in 2022, 0.97 in 2021. So that's already a big upgrade. He's had a dominant season in the pick and roll, but one thing that did stand out is him having the lowest frequency of it. In the last 5 years, it went from 33%, 33%, 36%, 29% to a very low 18%. So he had dipped in the 20s for the first time since a while, and I wonder what direction the Sixers will going to go down with. Because he had so many improvements when it comes to efficiency this year. Is this going to go downwards? Is he going to continue to be used more off-ball, or do you use him more in those on-ball actions that you couldn't have done with Tobias Harris? Because that's the whole point of upgrading a Harris position into someone like George, because you will get the extras. Here are Paul George's passing stats from BBO Index. You can see he has been elite. There have been years where he's near the top in his playmaking. He's always been one of the guys that can create easy shots. The volume is not there. The volume really dropped this year, but that's again just him being in the off-ball role. But when it comes to the actual passes that he creates, how good of them passes they are, he can do it. Compare that to Tobias Harris. The volume was never there. The creation quality was never there. Nothing was there for Tobias Harris. So that alone is a significant upgrade that George will give you, even if it's a decline, even if it's not at the level that he was in the last 2 years. It will 100% be better than whatever this was from Harris. And that's where I can see Maxey benefiting a lot from him. In the Sixers in these 2 years with no Embiid or Harden on were -1 in over 3,000 minutes with a 115 offense. This year without Embiid, with Maxey on, they were plus 0.4 with a 117 offense. Maxey was asked to create a lot for himself there. 29% of his twos without Joel were created for himself, were only assisted. 49% of his threes were assisted as well. Compare that to 48% and 78% with Embiid. So that's where George can help Maxey a lot, because he can put him in those positions where he doesn't have to burden himself with creating so much of the offense. And that alone will make the Sixers more dangerous. That they're not that reliant on Joel just creating everything. So overall, this was the best move that they could have made, and I'm a big believer in this trio. There is good fit. The players are good at those skills. Some are really exceptional, like when it comes to George's spot-up shooting and his efficiency off-ball. I can talk myself into this core being potentially the best in basketball when healthy. With Maxey, George and Joel all being at 3 different sizes, 3 different positions, 3 different builds, there is so much more flexibility, more options that you can run with. there is no redundancy in any of those positions, and that alone will just make this core so much more dangerous. Now, I'm really looking forward to watching Joel Embiid play, because he had himself one of the best seasons in the league in a while. He had a career year. Look at just a big thing that stood out was his impact. Even in a 39 game sample, you can see how much better he was compared to his 3 previous seasons where it was around 7+. That just casually went up to 10. Is this the Joel Embiid that we're going to see? Because a lot of it came down to him being so dominant on both ends of the floor, where with him on, the Sixers offense and defense would have ranked second, and without him that would have dropped to 16th and 17th. And I think that's what made Joel so dominant this year. I don't think there was anyone else that was so impactful on both ends of the floor. You take someone like Jokic, who could have had a much more offensive impact than Joel, but the defense wasn't close. Same with Shea. Similar with Giannis. I don't think anyone had as much responsibilities and was as effective as Joel this year. One of the things that stood out was rim protection. He defended the most shots within 6 feet with 9 shots at the rim, and opponents shot 53%, which was 10% worse than expected. So are we going to see a repeat of that? Is there a world in which he comes in even better? Because I don't know what that world would even look like. Because he was already that dominant on both ends. If he improves in certain areas, he did have the Olympics, so what if he comes in with something new? What if he comes in as a better passer or a better shooter, better decision maker? Because some of the position in the Olympics where the minutes with him as the 5 compared to Bam, compared to AD were significantly different, and a lot of it was just the ball stopping, not playing with the flow, just stopping around that free throw line. If he can change some of those and adapt, and now with George, have the offense more flowing, we could see a much better Joel Embiid. And with what he's shown this year, with how dominant the Sixers were with him already, they could be even more dominant. And that's the thing I'm looking for the most with Joel, just to see if this can continue and whether he has something more in his bag. But the biggest X factor for them this year is Tyrese Maxey. He will always right now be the biggest X factor because of the potential that he has, especially with what he's shown already. He's already taken a jump to being an all-star. He was tasked with more responsibility this year with no Harden. Then he was asked with more responsibility with Joel missing time, and yet he still averaged over 25 points per 75 possession on 57% true shooting. The efficiency did drop from his usual standards, but that is to be expected, especially with no Joel, no Harden, and yet he still was impactful. His assist percentage went up from 17% to 27%, so there is a jump in some of the playmaking. That was one of the main issues I had with him from stepping into that role, stepping into that tier of players because of his playmaking gap. That has got better, especially when it comes to volume, but you can also see not a lot has changed. These are stats compared to on-ball players. You can see that passing creation volume did jump a lot, but that's just because of no Joel and no Harden. Everything else can kind of remain the same. He doesn't create the best quality shots. His high value assists, whether it's at the rim, corner threes, or free throws, that hasn't changed a lot. The playmaking talent compared to on-ball players is still at an F. So those are that's the big X factor swing that could happen. If he jumps to at least average, if he can turn those Fs into Cs, Bs, that could make the whole core with George and Embiid much even better. Because then they will have 3 players that are at least average to elite passers, and that can make the whole trio so much better. And that's the one thing that we'll have to look out for Tyrese Maxey this year. Then there's the rest of the team. I think outside of just with the one position, I think they did a good job surrounding them with better talent. I feel comfortable with the guards and the ball handling duties being shared with Maxey, Lowry, Jackson and Gordon, and even Caleb Martin. There are all those players give you something different, some more drive, some more IQ and passing like Lowry, some shooting from Gordon, some just more versatile that are not great at one thing like Caleb Martin. He could do a bunch of little things. Though I wonder when it comes to defense, is that good enough when it comes to the guard and the perimeter play? Because they do have Kelly Oubre, who will probably take a lot of the responsibility when it comes to being a point of attack defender. We saw that in the next series when he was tasked with defending Jalen Brunson. So who's going to get that matchup? Is it going to be Oubre again? Can we trust Caleb Martin? Can we trust Maxey stepping up with his defense? Because right now the perimeter point of attack defense is the biggest question mark for me, as well as the big wing. Right now they only have George, because like we said, Oubre is probably going to be tasked guarding guards. They don't have Batum anymore. They don't have guys like Robert Covington, Marcus Morris. They don't have a big body that can just space and defend those guys. Is that all falling on George? Because if it is, then we heard some of the comments from him already where he's not looking to be that kind of doing the dirty work. That could complicate things, because then that just puts a lot more pressure on Joel. And I'm not sure if that's going to be the best thing for them. So first thing is just figure out the point of attack defense with Maxey, Lowry, Jackson, Gordon and Martin, because I don't trust all of that. Maybe it's Maxey that steps up defensively. Maybe that's the step that makes him an All-NBA caliber player with that defense. Or it's just Kelly Oubre cleaning everything up. Maybe we'll finally see George embrace that kind of role. But even with all that said, I see this team as one of the best in Joel Embiid's era. This will be one of the best teams in the league, and if they're healthy, they are a legit contender. So some predictions: I see this team as a 50 to 57 win team. Their floor is a 6 seed, with just health being a reason. If they have another similar season what they had last year, with the floor will likely be a bit higher with George. But if they don't have guys healthy, they will just be around that plain 6 seed range. But the ceiling is the top team. In the East, probably then it will be the best team in the league, and at least the conference finals. That's the ceiling. I like this team. The George signing was the best move that they could have made, and it's probably their best move that helped them the most. He gives them exactly what they need and what can push them further. There are no fit issues. There are no question marks with how that's going to work. There are questions. There are ways to experiment them, but they're all positive and encouraging. And it's just seeing that on the court. Because in theory, all of it should work. There are no in theories how there are some issues with it. They made the most of it as well when it comes to just bringing in new players in Gordon, Drummond and Martin. They brought back the key players last year. So they got better everywhere. Their top end talent got better. The role players should be better as well. They kept the players that had the most impact last year. There are a few concerns and question marks, but with everything else being as dominant, I think they can just easily clean it up. And they were already a 79% win team with Joel. I don't think that's going to get worse. So it should only be up for them. Again, it will all depend on Embiid's and now even George's health going forward, which has obviously not been an easy thing to do. But if they can stay healthy, if we see relatively 100% Joel Embiid in the playoffs, this is a legit contender, and this might be the year that the Sixers do some noise, make some noise in the playoffs.